Watch it, boys racing. Here we go, and go hard. And go hard. Very good. Peddler's Pod with Sam and Macca.
7 months since our last episode, about 6 months since we said we were going to record the next one, and about a year and a half since we actually bought these cameras. Hello and welcome to the new era of the Paddlers Pod. Not only can you listen to this episode on your favourite podcast platform, just like usual, you are now able to watch along on YouTube, and you can see all of the behind the scenes details that we normally hide from behind the audio. My name is Sam Jordan, a washed up paddler, and I have the honour of sitting opposite a man through the power of technology who is not only a world champion medalist, he's a junior world champion as well, but he came second at a surf ski race on the Sunshine Coast on the weekend. Mackenzie Heinard, hello and welcome back.
Oh, it's good to be back, Sam. Jeez, I don't know if everyone needs to see the behind the scenes footage, but we're going to let them in. Nevertheless, it's an exciting little venture. I guess we're going to call this season 3. Can we do that? I think
we should just call it season 2. This is the one that we've actually been building for almost 2 years now. I know that we have been kind of bringing you along on this journey as well, in order to getting a little bit of picture as well, but we are finally here. And I think now that we should probably acknowledge straight away for those who are watching on YouTube, yes, Mackenzie's camera looks better than mine. The reason for the delay for the last year and a half has been me not being able to figure out how to use this camera. And believe it or not, in the time since I said I was going to do it, I didn't. So the quality is down a little bit today, but we will be back for the next episode, no doubt. And for everyone who's actually just listening on the podcast platform like usual, they don't give a shit.
Yeah,
and they're just waiting
like,
for us to have a little chat about paddling too, which is going to wait for a moment because we have some huge news to address right off the top of the show, and it goes beyond the sport of paddling. For those who have met Macca, it's been an incredible journey that we've all gone on together. Also through the time that we've been doing the podcast as well, which is about 3 years now, 4 years or something like that.
It's gone on a long time.
But Macca, show us your ring because you're now engaged. Show us that diamond ring. This is the good.
Where's the equity here? I got nothing.
Yes, Mackenzie Heinard is off the market well and truly now. Macca, congratulations on your engagement to the beautiful Sky. How good is that?
Yeah, I did think this would get brought up. Good on you. Yeah, it was pretty special. Got engaged on an active volcano. It wasn't all rainbows and sunshine though. It was like minus something degrees. We were both crook as, and we'd hiked up this mountain, and I was like, I've got to do it here. And yeah, there was no it wasn't pretty. Maybe we'll share the raw edited behind the scenes footage of me dropping the knee with a balaclava on. Sky can barely hear me. She's shoveling her face full of Oreos. It's a good one.
You know what? We actually can do that now that we are on YouTube as well. Macca, send me the video. We'll drop it at the very end of the podcast.
That is funny.
Actually, you know what? I can drop it in right now. I can drop it in right at that exact moment for everyone who's been watching along. Macca, incredible. You went to the other side of the world to do it. You didn't tell anyone, or really, except for, only Corey Hill was the only confidant that you were going to be doing that. So that certainly got a few of us by surprise, mate. We're so stoked. Congratulations.
Thank you. It feels like a bit of relief, to be honest. I was a bit nervous. Imagine being 4,000 meters up and holding onto a ring. It's like a 5-meter ledge, and it's like if you drop this, and it was my grandmother's ring, and I was like, oh my God. I was the most nervous I've ever been in my entire life. 100%.
Well, years of racing that you could fall back on. No doubt you had some kind of pre-race warm-up, a little bit of stretching as well, because I know you've been itching to get back into your paddling, which you're going to be doing now. How are you feeling looking ahead to the year? And I say looking ahead because although there have been some pretty big races so far around the world this year, I think everyone knows that the racing year doesn't begin until the Paddlers Pod is back. We've just taken our 6 months off, so I guess that's right.
It's like all
about
those
now.
things that happened, not important. Now it starts. I love you're really like thriving on you being the washed up paddler here and me just being the athlete. Don't sell yourself short. You did more competing in the last 6 months than I did.
Well, certainly in the surf lifesaving arena. Thankfully, that shoulder is now at least holding itself together, not too convincingly. But I loved being back paddling and racing. Loved it so much that I've had the last 6 weeks off. But I have now gotten back in the boat again. Just yesterday morning, I paddled on what is, I think, the coldest morning I've ever paddled in Australia. It was a really strong westerly offshore wind. The feels like temperature was about 1 degree. And, you know, as you know, Macca, paddling in winter, the best part of paddling is the hot shower afterwards. You think about it the whole session.
Oh, no.
I got home from paddling yesterday morning, still in my wet paddling clothes. There was no hot water, and my body was shutting down to the extent I actually ran downstairs and boiled the kettle. I mixed it with a bit of cold water in a bucket, and I sat on the ground of the shower, pouring the bucket of water over myself, saying, hey, it's good to be back.
Why do I do this?
It is good to be back. I enjoyed it so much, I might even get on the water again soon. But Macca, we made the joke that the paddling year doesn't start until the Paddlers Pod is back. Well, there has actually been so much going on in the world of paddling. We are going to be getting into a little bit of that today, but we still have plenty to catch up on as well. Fortnightly episodes of the Paddlers Pod. We did it last year. It is what we're going to be aiming for again this year as well. So I think there actually is going to be some consistency to it now in the new age. So we've got our work cut out for us. We may as well get stuck straight into it.
Let's roll.
The Paddlers Pod. Power Plays.
The Power Plays brought to you once again by our equal number ones, our day ones, Vaikobi Ocean Performance Wear. And although there has been so much happening right around the world, we are going to begin in Europe.
Number 3.
One of the first major races of the year, the Euro Challenge. It's one of the sport's most iconic races as well. And this year it boasted a star-studded field from all corners of the globe. We didn't just have the incredibly strong European contingent. We had Matthew Fenn travelling north from South Africa, and also Corey Hill from the other side of the world in Australia. And it was the 3-time world champion who came out on top. It was off the back of summer for Corey, but a little bit earlier than he usually would be putting his foot down for a race over this kind of distance as he geared up for Moloa. And although he did get the win by about 30 seconds, he certainly didn't have it his own way, rather, with Bernardo Pereira coming in second and Matthew Fenn third as well. It's a field that boasted Walter Bazan and also Gordon Harbrecht too. Macca, this was a really strong race to start the year.
Yeah, wasn't it ever? I guess it's always been one that's been really strong. Sean Rice has absolutely dominated that event for basically a decade, really. And since he's stepped away, it's like given rise. It used to be South African dominated, I reckon, because they always used to fly up. It's not too far. But of recent time, it's definitely fallen back to that European heritage and roots, which has been really cool and enabled it to grow, especially over that COVID period. So it was really cool to see where it got to this season with having international paddlers back. And I think it's really made a bit of a mark on the map of paddling. It comes at a time when the Nello Summer Challenge has fallen away as well. So it definitely gives rise to it being the premier ocean paddling event in Europe. It just so happens that it's at the start. Like, you know what I mean? It's very early in their season and leading into their summer. It'd be cool to be able to see more races jump onto the calendar, and maybe that's the start of their racing season. But it sort of starts with the biggest one, and everyone was there to throw down some, I wouldn't say surprising results by any means. I know Gordon put a lot into the end of last year, and you imagine, coming, in summer and you go back to winter, I can't imagine the motivation's very high to keep paddling. And so I think he did extremely well off limited training and maybe a couple of injuries. I think, come the end of the season, we'll definitely see him more to the forefront of the field. But that young charge of paddlers, Bernardo and Matt Fenn, I know like Corey said, they pushed him all the way to the end. So really exciting to see. I don't have too much more. I was definitely I was living it up on holidays, sipping margaritas in Mexico at this time. So I was pretty distanced from the paddling scene.
Oh, Macca, don't sell yourself short. We can bluff our way through this. Look, one thing that you actually touched on there actually was the performance of Bernardo Pereira. He's, such a strong paddler, and there has been so much excitement around Bernardo as well, out of not just Europe, but I think paddlers all around the world looking at Portugal and hoping that, he was really going to kick on into the open age groups. And he's certainly doing that, although he has had a couple of tough learning experiences along the way as well. Coming to Australia the last 2 years, I know he didn't quite get some of the results there that he was hoping for, but it's really promising to see him have a performance like that.
Yeah, I think, as our favourite paddler would say, Oscar, he was one to watch. He's going to win races, and it may have taken a little bit longer for him to get where I think everyone thought he might be and where, he maybe thought he was, but there's no doubt that, what he's going to bring in the next couple of years is going to be pretty sensational. And I think we're starting to see that European contingent really come to the forefront of ocean paddling. And I think that's where the next... you see it in most sports. Once Europe takes something up and they really gear towards having the best in the world, our sport will just continue to rise, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Corey Hill winning that in about 1 hour 27, 1 hour 28. That was about 26 seconds. I think it was exactly 26 seconds ahead of Pereira. Matthew Fenn about 30 seconds further behind. Gordon Harbrecht was fourth, while European champion Hector Henot rounded out that top five. Macca, Hector, let's just touch on him quickly because that's one of the races that did happen while we were away, was the European Championships. Yes. A really great result for Hector, someone who's also had a little bit of time away from the sport, chasing sprint kayaking, but after a strong swing in Australia last year for the Doctor and the World Championships, he's really starting to kick on now as well.
Yeah, I must say, he was training a lot. He was here in Australia training a lot through summer. I know he was doing a lot with Jeremy Cotter. He basically became a professional Ironman, surf Ironman athlete. He was swimming 4 times a week, riding everywhere. He was probably clocking up 100K riding because he didn't have a car to and from. It's just, him and Val.
Typical Henot stuff,
yeah,
right?
Typical.
Yeah.
Typical. And just so ripped and cut. Probably is a bit taller than Val, maybe a bit more bulk. And yeah, I think he put together an amazing performance, an incredible performance. I thought he was definitely going to be the favourite for that race, given how much training he'd come off and what sort of fitness level he was at. He had a bit of pressure on his shoulders too. He had to follow in his brother's footsteps, I think, from winning that European title, which is a big thing, like in the sport of paddling for the European paddlers, and it's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely, Macca. Look, I want to have a chat about Corey in just a moment, but before we do the women's race, we mentioned the margins in the men's. The women's field was even tighter. At the front was Judith Vergezifra from Spain, who we know is so strong, particularly at this time of year in these events. She knows how to step up when it counts, but she was pushed all the way by Rosie Edwards out of Great Britain. Now, Rosie has spent a bit of time in South Africa over the last 12 months as well, training down there, and it certainly showed. They were neck and neck across the course. In the end, 3 seconds separated them, with Judith getting the win over Rosie. Macca, it's great to see someone from Great Britain. We know how talented Rosie is, but it's great to see Great Britain represented at the front of these races as well.
Yeah, this just stems back to what I was saying about the level of paddling in Europe coming up. And it's like, once there's a certain level, that's now the baseline, and then everyone has to get to that point. And you'll find that more paddlers from more nations aspire to do that. It's really cool. I think those early races in the season always sort of lend to people having closer finishes. I don't know. It just seems like, at the end of the year, yes, like everyone's going to be in tip-top shape, but it does seem like when everyone's not so in tip-top shape, it seems to bunch up, and they're the not so pleasant sprint finishes because neither of you have anything left. It's really ugly. You've just expended everything. There's no fitness to draw back on. It's almost comical to watch.
Well, that's exactly right.
That's what happened to me on the weekend. I'm just trying to make myself
you certainly
feel
would
better.
have felt that. The evergreen Chloe Bunnett rounding out that top 3 as well, finishing in third place of that race. Now, Corey made no secret of the fact that he was going over there for 2 reasons. One was to prepare for the Moloa. There was no race in Australia. Normally we do have the early rounds of the Australian Ocean Racing Series at this time of year, although that has been revised for this year. Corey went to the other side of the world to have a proper hit out before the Moloa. Reason number 2 is that he said he was going back and listening to a couple of episodes of the Paddlers pod that he missed at the end of the year and listened to us chat about the fact that we wanted to see him win a few more races in Europe. It's a very expensive trip to make just to prove us not wrong. Like, I think we're always saying that Corey, has what it takes to win races all over the world. But I'll tell you what, he certainly ticked that box, and it really did help his Molokai preparation as well. That is our number 2 power play.
Number 2.
We know how strong Corey Hill is over these long distance races, and he certainly proved that once again, winning his 4th title at the iconic Molokai Challenge. It was a really, really hard fought battle between he and Pat Dolan at the front of the field. Pat Dolan, a paddler that we know always performs in these races, and Corey was certainly on alert for that. Pat actually sticking it to Corey in the early parts of the race. He put the foot down early. He had a bit of a lead at around that 20-kilometre mark that Corey admits was far longer than he would have liked, but the class of Corey and the work that he put in for this race shone through, crossing the line in 3 hours, 40 minutes and 48 seconds to win his 4th Molokai crown, putting him alongside the great Hank McGregor as well for that one. Pat Dolan finishing in second, about 4.5 minutes behind. And then it was a bit further back to Cole Jones, about another 22 minutes behind Pat to Cole to round out the top 3. Now, Macca, there is a bit to chat about in terms of the Molokai Challenge. There were 10 surf ski paddlers in the race, which certainly rung plenty of alarm bells for people all around the world. But for now, let's focus on firstly Corey's win. What does he say about Corey to win 4 Molokai titles?
Yeah, I think he's proven over the last 5... Well, when was it? 2015 was the first year he won. First year I moved to the Gold Coast, so we're almost going back 9 years. And I think in that time, it's really just been him and Hank. Hank's been the only person that's been able to take it to Corey. Hank probably got a title that maybe wasn't going to get because Corey hit the rocks that we all remember and we remind him of every day. But yeah, I think he's just been the informed paddler there. He loves that race. I think for him, it means almost the most out of any between that and the Doctor. And we've heard him say that before. That's what he does the sport for. That's what he loves. He loves Hawaii itself. He spent so much time there with his family before, after, on every trip he goes there on holidays regardless. And yeah, I think it's pretty special for him. You can only race who, and we'll touch on it, but you can only race who's there. He's still, whoever turned up, he still would have beat them, I reckon. It's the fittest I've ever seen him for a Molokai, for sure. He was putting in more miles than I've ever seen. Go back to 2015, I remember he was definitely like, I trained 4 times a week, and that was not the case. This time around, it was a lot more training. I don't know if it's as you get older, your body can handle more or it needs more, whatever it may be. He was, he was in some serious form. And I think that proved come the closing stages of the race that, to have that mindset of like, okay, my race is going to start at 20 kilometers. Like a lot of people are winding down, right? You're suffering, just trying to get to the end. Having that mindset, is sort of what Corey has. That's the thing that is so good for him is his mindset and being able to just race and push his body, mind all the way to the end.
Yeah, you touched on it there, Macca, the fact that Corey was perhaps fitter than any other Molokai challenge this year. For me, that's the great shame in all this as well. So much of the conversation has been rightly around the lack of numbers. One of the first things Corey said after the race when we spoke was that it was a real shame to him that there was only 10 people in the race because people would overlook how impressive Pat Dolan was in his performance for second. Like, we're talking, 4 minutes between Corey and Pat when Corey's fitter than he's ever been. Like, he put a lot of good paddlers to the sword by more than 4 minutes last year. Pat made no secret of the fact that he was devastated with how his Molokai Challenge went in 2023, finishing in 10th place. And he did everything he could to try and get fit for this forward. And a big part of that was actually paddling his outrigger again. Well, at the start of the month before the Molokai Challenge was that he went and won the Kauai Crossing for the Pa'a Molokai Outrigger Challenge. And he said he was only doing that training to get fit for the surf ski race as well. Corey was on red alert. And when Pat started to put the foot down at that 20K mark, some doubt started to creep into Corey's mind, which for a bloke who has now won 4 Molokais, 3 world titles, and every other race several times around the world, that's a really, really tough thing to be able to do. Macca, you've raced against Pat a few times. How impressive is he as an ocean athlete? Because we don't get to see him that often throughout the year.
It's severely underrated, and I back Corey on that wholeheartedly. Every performance he has, the third that he got to Hank and Corey when Corey broke the record the first time, it was like, because Corey and Hank broke the record, or they both broke it, no one sort of overshadowed Pat's performance for third in like an extremely star-studded field. And he's done the same thing at the Gorge. Like, he's always there, and maybe he's not winning the races, but he's just knocking everyone else off that is a top-tier paddler. And it's never a doubt that he'll be able to go the distance, right? It's like, so he just won and broke the record in the outrigger crossing. So yeah, like it's worrying, and well, no, it's amazing, worrying for all of us, because it's always going to be that if you ever go anywhere around America, he'll be there, ready to push you and ready to go, I think.
Yeah, well said, Macca. Really impressive performance. Now, we have touched on it a little bit, but let's get into it. The Molokai Challenge this year only had 10 individual surf ski paddlers. Last year, that number was 39, which also rung alarm bells as well. There were a few factors that went into it this year too. The obvious is that Shaw and Partners Financial Services, a huge supporter of surf ski paddling in Australia, came on board last year as the naming rights partner for the Molokai Challenge, and it was hoped that that would be a long-term partnership. In the end, it only lasted 12 months. And this year, for the first time in, 6 or 7 years or something like that, Shaw and Partners didn't send a traveling party, a trip for paddlers from around the world, funding those campaigns at the Molokai. That resulted in about 40 or 30 to 40 less paddlers in the race this year, which not only is a big hit to the competitiveness of it, but it's a huge hit to the race's bottom line as well. You think about the local community there with escort boats and all that kind of thing. So that is one factor. Another is that the race has really worked hard since the COVID-19. God, even saying COVID-19 out loud. Man, it's been a while since we've even had to think about that. But yeah. The COVID pandemic was a huge, huge hurdle to the Molokai Challenge, because the locals of Molokai didn't want the race back. It stopped them racing the event in 2022. They said you weren't welcome. And although they were back there last year, it made things really, really difficult. And Jim Fody from the Kanaka Akaika Racing Association that organises the race has done a lot of work with the locals to try and get the race back. Look, all of that work, though, pointed towards a pretty alarming conclusion for people around the world, which was that the race may disappear. It is surf ski's most iconic race. You know, we talk about the Doctor, the Euro Challenge, the Gorge, Dragon Run, whatever. Everyone's got these big races, not to mention the Cape Point Challenge, one's back home for the South Africans. But the Molokai has been the original surf ski race that captured the imagination. And at the moment, it's just not quite that anymore. And I would say that it hasn't actually quite been that for a number of years now. It's not just the fact that Shaw and Partners walked away as sponsors. The race itself has struggled to try and get its identity back in the last few years. And in a really honest, wide-ranging interview that you can read on the website, Jim spoke about the fact that although it is, concerning for them about the number of surf skis, there are two positives out of this. One is that PAA has allowed the Kanaka Akaika Racing Association to take back the OC relay division. Now, the number of relays that there was this year, I think there might have been like 30 OC teams doing relays in this year's event, meant that financially, although the race still lost money, it was worth their while to continue running it. And that's a positive thing. As long as they are running it, which they will continue to do so, surf skis will always be there and be allowed. Like over the years, SUPs have been cut from it and prones have been cut from it as well in this form of the Molokai crossing, but surf skis will always remain. The other part is that the Molokai Challenge now has an opportunity to get back to its roots, which is being that, not core, but like being a race where you are taking on Mother Nature, you are taking on the Channel of Bones, as well as different paddlers from around the world. I think maybe over the last 10 years, there's been different thoughts about trying to turn it into, a more elite race that matches races that we see around the world, a little bit more glitzy race. But look, I think at the end of the day, if it can be that race that it is a crossing between the islands of Molokai and Oahu, that is what people want to go and take part in. Not every race has to be an elite race with, huge bells and whistles. Like, at the end of the day, people want to go paddling and take on a challenge. And I think that if they, being the Kanaka Kaika Racing Association, can, find that vision in their plan moving forward, then I think the race will thrive again.
Yeah. I've got 3 things to add to that, and you beautifully summarized. One is, does the race have the capacity to be a doctor? And my answer is probably not. Like,
no,
imagine
and Jim
if,
acknowledges that too. The answer is no.
Yeah, like, so there is a certain level of, like, it's not that. It's not that. It can't be the gorge. It can't be the doctor. It can't sell out. Like, there's physically just not enough space. There's not enough support boats. There's not enough boats. Like, all of that is really hard. The second thing, like you touched on, is those people at the pointy end, yes, they're there to race. Everyone else, it's sort of like an accomplishment. It's a bit of an expedition. You know what I mean? And especially without the involvement of Shore and Partners, it's back to that, like, you're a little bit on your own. You've got to source your own support boat. You're messaging people on WhatsApp trying to figure it out. Maybe they turn up, maybe they don't. Like, it's definitely on that Hawaii time. It's a lot different of a feel and culture to the race, which I know they've touched on. It was lacking a little bit over the last couple of years. And so, like you said, can bring it back to the roots. The third thing would be a suggestion, which I've touched on before, and I guess now makes like a lot more, gives a lot more reasoning behind it with the OC relay coming back in, is that why don't we do individuals one year and relays the next? It creates more prestige if you only can race in individual every second year, and it also creates like a lot for people to go and do, because like it's 54k. It's not you can't just go waltz out there and paddle 54k in the open ocean, especially if it's crazy and big. Like, a relay would be fun, and we could really see people put together like some serious teams and really go after. Like, imagine what the record might come down to if you had 3 people, 4 people in a team. So they're probably the only extra thoughts that I have for it.
Tell you what, it's a left field idea, Macca. I love it though, because in the same way that we've spoken about the World Championships somewhat, not losing their, I guess, prestige, but the fact that it makes it more difficult to go and compete at them every year. And I know a couple of paddlers we're going to have a chat about a little bit later are not doing the World Championships this year because of the fact that it's so far away and expensive. People can actually prioritize hitting a Molokai challenge once every 2 years because cost is a big part of it as well. And Jim acknowledges that. Like, it is so expensive. I think not just race entry, which was, I think, about $200 US this year, but the cost of having an escort boat, which in the past has been as high as $1,500 US. With having a smaller field this year, it actually came down to anywhere between $800 and $1,000 because there wasn't as much demand. So, look, there are pros and cons to all of this as well. But you're right, Macca. I think anything that maintains the reverence of the race, the sacredness in which it's held, is only going to be a benefit because that is Molokai's strongest selling point. I know that in the past it was referred to as the Molokai World Championships. Is it still a World Championships now? No. And I don't think people can argue that to be the case, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is one of the most special and iconic races in the world that everybody wants to win.
Or even do. And that's where they need to be catering, right? Like, not every top paddler is going to go every year to try and win the Molokai. I don't feel. There's so much effort and preparation that goes into a race like that. Like, it's 6 months of the year that you have to take out of your life because the amount of miles that you have to do. Because you're not just like, you got to race. It's because now it's gone to another level. Like, you have to race at such high intensity for so long to get to your level of fitness to that point. Takes so much investment, and it's not something that every top paddler wants to do every year because, I mean, you look at some people like Tom Norton, he invested so heavily in it, and I don't think he got what he wanted out of it near the tail end, and it almost was a detriment. And so how can we, it's some people are going to want to do that, and some people just want to go to accomplish it and do it. And by having it every second year as an individual race and a relay race the other years, I think that could be a nice little sweet spot.
I love it, Macca. You're thinking ahead. That's your event management hat on. It's good to see as well because, I think one thing that everyone agrees on is that this race has to remain on the calendar. And when I say everyone, that includes the Kanaka Kaika Racing Association as well. So well done to them for all of their work, and hopefully we see more people back at Molokai in the future.
Number one.
Macca, get those hands ready. We're going to start giving out some rounds of applause because we all know how special our surf ski paddlers are. Our surf ski community is right around the world. And now we're going to be showing the world as well because in just 2 months' time, the Olympiad, I actually have been getting told what number it is. It could be like, 23rd Olympiad? So, look, who knows? But either way,
that's why
Olympic
you're not
Games,
going, hey?
That's why I missed out on selection. The Olympic Games are on in Paris, and some of surf ski's favourite sons will be there representing their nations as well. To begin with, a huge congratulations to Riley Fitzsimmons, Noah Havard, and of course Jackson Collins, who will be representing Australia in the K4 500. We have seen Riley racing surf ski right throughout his career. This is going to be his third Olympic Games, so he's certainly not a newcomer to it. But for Noah Havard, who has raced the Doctor so many times, he's raced events along the east coast of Australia. And for Jackson Collins, who did step away from downwind paddling at a time that he was on top of the sport. He beat Corey Hill in his last race at the 20 Beaches. And he said, I'm going to leave all of this on hold for the time being to chase the dream. They are now going to be racing in. Look, let's acknowledge, canoe sprint's not our number one choice, but good on them for getting there and doing it. They're Olympians. Macca, to start with these boys, what a transition it's been, particularly for Noah and Jackson as well, for Jacko to follow in his father's footsteps. Mate, it's unreal.
Yeah, you see it all the time. They've, the pool that Paddle Australia is able to draw on out of, so is Ocean Ski, out of surf lifesaving into sprint kayaking or ocean paddling. Yeah. That it's just incredible. You look at any paddler that has come through and done well at an Olympic level from Australia, they've almost all come out of surf lifesaving, to be honest. And they had great success there, and it's really cool to see. It's aspiring. Like you said, it's probably not something that you or I would... you did a lot of sprint kayaking. Maybe I shouldn't speak on behalf of you. I'm sure you would have loved to go to the Olympics. It's not something that I would invest in. I know there's so many... I can see the politics and all the rest behind it. But for them to be in that team, and they're not just in the team, right? They just got second narrowly, marginally at the world titles to basically inform Germany.
World Cup. Yeah. Look, close enough. I'll take over the nuts and bolts of canoe sprint then.
Sorry.
They did. Macca, it's a good point. This time last year, they finished somewhere around 20th at the first World Cup in Europe, and the boat didn't look good. Australia's never been a fast twitch kayaking nation when we're talking about distances like 200s or 500 in a K4, but they have worked so hard in order to get that boat to a silver medal at the only World Cup that everyone's lining up in this year. They're a big medal chance, and it's the sacrifices to step away from downwind as a result. You touched on a really good point. Actually, I think it's maybe one of my favorite articles I've written on the Paddler was, this time 3 years ago at the Tokyo Olympics, when I had a chat with Clint Robinson about what it takes to become, a canoe sprint paddler. And he said for him that downwind paddling and surf paddling plays such an important role for sprint paddlers that Australia's always tapped into. We did in Tokyo with Tom Green. Him and John van der Westhausen won the K2 1000, and Tom is a surf paddler. He's done a lot of ocean ski races. He paddles his Nordic, in those years past. So it makes a big difference, and we're going to be seeing that again on the world stage. Just like we are for Jonas Ecker out of the United States of America. This. Jonas, not only a great downwind paddler, we see him on the Gorge all the time. He's always at the Gorge Downwind Championships as well. I remember I had a really good battle with him a couple of years ago, and I got to the end and said to you, who is that guy? He's not only a really good paddler, but he's a lovely bloke.
Yeah, nice guy.
That's when I got to know Jonas. What a man. So good to see him paddling the K2 500 with his partner Aaron Small as well, who I've no doubt has been in a surf ski at times too, because those boys just love paddling and they're going to get to show it again on the world stage. So good.
Let's just hope there's no portages for Jonas Ecker, if anyone's seen the famous Vaikobi. Actually, I think it was at the World Championships when they raced like the 5K and they put in portages and he climbs after his boat and falls in. So luckily there's none of that for poor Jonas.
Yeah, just north of Jonas in the great nation of Canada via the northern beaches of Sydney, Simon McTavish is going to be going to his second Olympics as well. Simon, not a born and bred surf ski paddler, but he's made that transition over the last few years. He's been at the Shaw and Partners WA Race Week as well. He's been lining up in races here on the East Coast too, and he's been doing a great job of that. So Macca, look, I think he's an adopted son now.
Yeah, you would say so, right? I would. I mean, he absolutely... Geez, he tore that field apart over in WA in those... with the Dash for Cash ones. Interesting, actually, when you say Simon. Simon's the... What do you call it? Front seat, bow...
I don't know if he does paddle. I don't know what seat he's paddling at the moment.
I think he's in. I think he's in the front, and I think Riley's in the front. Jonas is in the front. So
yeah, maybe there's something in that.
Maybe I'm drawing conclusions out of nothing. I don't know.
And you know what? We got to find out what set this next man is in, because I didn't know. You know, we know and love Andy Burkett. He is one of our favourite paddlers in the world, not just for his incredible ability, not just in downwind paddling, but also racing canoe marathon as well. He's won so many world championships now, I can't keep up. But he's now going to the Olympics on the canoe sprint team. He's partnering Hamish Lovemore, two men who have made the transition to downwind paddling. And hey, let's be real. When I say that I was surprised to learn, it has nothing to do with their ability. I just had no idea, one, they were considering a tilt at it, and two, that they'd actually, the way that selection policy works is really tricky for South Africans. There's been so many paddlers who have been denied a chance to race at the Olympics over the years as well because of what can only be described as politics. But I haven't actually spoken to Andy about it since, but yeah, like he won that spot and they're going to the Olympics, right?
Yeah, I remember. Well, it seems like an eternity ago when I rang you and I was like, hey, this is the selection policy. They've just raced and they've won by more than 1.5 seconds, which means they don't have to do a race off and they're going to the Olympics. And we both were like, nah, surely there's some fine print. But no shit. They're off.
I keep saying, I'm not in disbelief about it, but I haven't seen him, I saw him do a social media post about it, but he's back to doing 120k weeks since then, getting ready for more marathon races coming up, but the speed that they showed, him and Hamish, was extraordinary. And that's because they've paddled so much, together as well. They've paddled so many K2 races. So look, I am going to be giving him a ring because I'm working on a long form article again to preview the Olympics.
Work.
But I did ring Riley Fitzsimmons and said, hey Riz, is Andy Burkett and Hamish Lovemore going to the Olympics? And he's like, yeah, they are. So that is just phenomenal. How good is it to have such representation as well? And, look, we would love to have more paddlers too. This has been, something that a lot of people have been keeping an eye on as well, because she is one of our favourite daughters of surf ski paddling too. Danielle McKenzie making that decision only this time last year to step away from downwind paddling and surf lifesaving, pull out of the Nutrigrain Ironwoman series, and make that switch to canoe sprint. She actually did it on the advice of Kenny Wallace, as she explained in an article that you can read on the paddler.news, and I do recommend, having a look at it as well, because it's hard to kind of explain the nuance and the technicalities behind it. But Danielle's transition to canoe sprint is nothing short of extraordinary. Within months of actually getting in a kayak for the very first time, she was right up there at World Cups in the K2 500 with her partner Amy Fisher. They did go on to qualify at the start of the year the quota spots for New Zealand. So they qualified the place at the Olympics. However, due to a really convoluted and extremely controversial selection process, Danielle has actually missed out on selection to race in Paris. Macca, if for me, hearing that and following along with that sums up everything that is fucked about kayaking. It really is.
Everything that, it really goes to show why I don't paddle in a straight line.
Yeah. And to be honest, mate, like I never got close, but it summed up why I stopped in terms of, trying to be involved in that. But like for Danielle, in the end, like, look, in short, they were trialing all different combinations, although none of the combination that was faster than Danielle was not actually a combination that was fastest all going to race, but because we were talking mathematics and sports sciences and percentages, she missed out by 1% or something like that on going to the Olympics. It's fucking stupid. But what I do want to make a point of saying, Macca, is that what does it say about Danielle that she could jump in a kayak and in less than 12 months earn a spot, because she certainly did earn a spot to go to the Olympics. She proved that she was good enough, that she earned a spot to go and do that. Like, that is, like, we know what D-Mac, now D-Rich, is like in terms of her ability in paddling, but mate, that's pretty unprecedented.
It's incredible, actually. It's nothing short of astonishing, which we've said before. And I mean, she was, when you talk about when she went to the first, I don't think it was World Champs, I'm going to say World Cup.
It was World Cup, yeah.
They got 7th or 6th. One of them.
Yeah, they're right up there straight away.
One spot behind and about half a second off qualifying the boat. And that would have been less than 12 months. Like, it's honestly, it's incredible. And it makes you wonder, I mean, I'm sure she's thought long and hard about what this means and what's next. And there's always going to be what ifs and buts that creep into your mind. Like, what happens if I started 12 months earlier? What, you know what I mean? But that's the land of what ifs, and it's a dangerous place to play. I think she can take extreme confidence out of her paddling ability. It's a shame that she's not going to be able to go to the Olympics. It would have been amazing to see her there, but it does mean that we get her back in a surf ski sooner rather than later, because she'll be taking part in the Gorge, and no doubt, oh God, watch out for anyone going there, because I'm sure she has a bit of anger boiled up.
Yeah, I'm sure she's actually also, again, get to that article on the website as well. Really poignant reflections, really kind of thoughtful, nuanced comments too about the whole process. But she just can't wait to paddle again, and just for enjoyment too. She's doing a lot of coaching now as well. She is going to the Gorge, like you mentioned. At this stage, I don't think we're going to see her at the World Championships this year. I think it just doesn't quite line up for her, but she is looking at, with a bit of confidence, racing at the Shaw and Partners WA Race Week at the end of the year too. So, yeah, plenty to look forward there for Danielle, and so much to be proud of too, D-Mac. We love you. We're proud of you. And we can't wait to see you back in a bit more wind now too. You can get into windy paddling again, and not just hoping
the
for
fun stuff.
Glassy water.
I don't want to cut you off. I just wanted to ask a question on, like, we speak about, imagine if ocean paddling was in the Olympics, because this happens every 4 years in every sport, where like people go to judiciaries, they go to court, they spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting for something. It's like happening in Australia in so many sports. To other people that I know personally, they don't even know if they're going. They're still chasing this dream. The Australian swimming titles is on. People that are winning aren't even making the qualifying time, meaning that it's up to selection yet again. Like, are we fortunate that, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say we're fortunate that ocean paddling is not in the Olympics.
In a word, yes. But you know what? I think that's actually something we're going to be touching upon in future episodes of the podcast as well, because, God, that's a whole lot.
I've jumped ahead.
I think there is a...
You can tell who steers the ship here.
No, that's exactly right. Look, mate, we haven't got the time of day to do that, especially when you're on the company clock at the moment. Should I say out loud, thank you, live heaps of your time.
Okay,
hey, look, one thing that is back as well that we can focus on right now is the return of the 10 doubles segment as well. We've heard your messages. We have been looking forward to having this segment return. Some slightly new questions, and also for those who are watching rather than just listening, we have it in video format too. And to kick off the new era is certainly one of the more unique submissions that we have received from paddlers right around the globe. Coming to you from the middle of the ocean, this is Josh Fenn back with 10 doubles.
How's it, guys? This is Josh Fenn, and this is my 10 doubles for the paddler pot. First question is what paddle I use, and that will be my trusty Fenix 1 740 square centimeters, and I use it on 213 length. Angle probably at 60 degrees, I think pretty standard. I think I use it for everything, sprints, long distance, doesn't change. Fastest kilometer I've ever done, that would have been probably in 2021, actually at that point over there. Well, not at the point, but yeah, going around that section. Yeah, I think it was quite a big west, so yeah, that lined up quite well, and that would have been a 2:47. And then best downwind I've ever done was actually 2 years ago, 2022, at Portugal World Surf Ski Champs. That was, I think everyone can agree, that was the best downwind I've ever had. Go-to training session. Matt and I are actually busy doing it now. We've got a 60-minute easy cruise, but yeah, actually 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute, and then 20 seconds on, and then I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 sets of those. Before a race, how do I warm up? Always a double shot flat white, or just get on 20 minutes before and just do a cruise and yeah, just get the muscles going. If I could design a race, how would it be? I'd definitely start with a water start, get straight into it, and then probably finish off with a run. So hopefully some people have dead legs or a little bit tired and can't get out too quick. Unfortunately, Hank got me last year, but we'll work on that one. And then, what goal could I achieve in paddling? Oh, I'd love to win a World Surf Ski title, any big race like a Moloa or the Doctor or something like that. Or just be close enough to Corey to see him. See if I've missed one, yeah.
There you go.
If I wasn't a paddler, what would I focus on? I'd probably say golf or tennis. Just do it for the money, and my ball skills are really impressive. Most boats I've tied onto a roof. Personally, I've never tied boats onto a roof. The guy behind the camera, Matthew Fenn, my ghillie, does it for me. But I'll probably say only about 4. And then, best impression of an air horn. Let's go.
Here we go. This episode of the Paddlers Pod is brought to you by Vaikobi. I did touch on this a little bit earlier, Macca, that I did paddle again this week for the very first time in what is probably the coldest conditions I've ever paddled in. But thankfully, I was toasty warm on the water, at least anyway, before that wind and that cold got ripped into me when I was trying to tie my boat onto the roof. Although Josh Fenn's not tying his boat, so he wouldn't know the feeling. But Macca, it actually makes paddling in winter possible when you have the right equipment.
Yeah, well, I can't even remember like back to when I was a young kid paddling, and we were like,
I just used to layer up in t-shirts.
Yeah,
I paddled
like
in tracksuit pants and a hoodie once. I'm pretty sure.
Just rashies upon rashies. And then you'd get a thermal from Aldi or something that's on sale for winter snow.
The big snow sale. It happened again the other week. Actually, it was.
Like, it's come so far now. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This does everything that I need. So
you know what? It's not just the actual items that have come so far. It's the design and the technology behind them as well. And that's something that Vaikobi work really hard on too. Its V-Cold range is constantly evolving and adapting too. And it is built not only to keep you warm, but it's built to last. Like my Vaikobi clothes that I wear through winter, I think we're heading into our 5th winter. You know, and they have held together perfectly well. It is not just the highest quality materials that is going to keep you warm. It's made from the most durable stuff too, to keep you going and going and going, no matter how many times you are going to paddle on the water.
They're so invested too in like the different sports. They just sponsored the qualifying,
the Challenger series in surfing
in Sydney. Like, you know what I mean? And like they're world renowned for what they do in sailing, so they're so connected to all those routes. And knowing what fits for each sport type, I mean, that's what you want out of an apparel provider, because they're so connected to all the different ones, and they're using and bringing that knowledge from somewhere else. And how can that be adapted to, you know, some sister sport, if you call it that?
Yeah, and it's not just that that cold weather gear too. We also have all the stuff for warm weather paddling available at Vaikobi.com for all of our friends north of the equator, and that is the place to check it out. Vaikobi.com, a proud supporter of the Paddlers Pod. Macca, we've actually done it. We're at the
We're pretty
end of,
good for
of an
time,
episode
too.
of the podcast. Look, I know that we have been
Holy.
looking at the watch a little bit in terms of getting you back to work. And Macca, it's been so much fun to do as well. It just feels right, doesn't it? Getting back
It
into
does,
the podcast
actually.
routine.
It's sort of like, not going to lie. I feel like sometimes we're like, this is probably we've had about 3 false starts, to be fair, for anyone listening and watching, for different reasons, technology, people, either of us just not feeling up to it. And I think once you do it, you're like, actually, no, this is really good. I really enjoy it. And it's so much fun. So hopefully everyone enjoyed listening. Hopefully you don't want to turn it off because you've seen what we look like. That's all I got.
Don't be so hard on yourself. Macca, we have 3 loose ends that we need to tie up before we do go.
3?
Number 1
Jesus.
is that you can probably tell, look, we are wearing our paddler.news shirts.
Oh, I don't
Macca,
wear these very
you're
often
looking-
because
Mate,
it's
I
a
wear
limited edition.
mine. I wear mine fucking everywhere. Like, absolutely
yours is-
everywhere.
I lost my black one in Sydney Airport after Corey and Tommy and
ya?
I maybe had too many beers. I left my, I took my, I don't know why. I must have changed shirts or something. Or anyway, I lost it in Sydney Airport. So if anyone's in the domestic Qantas terminal, 3 years ago, you probably picked one up.
Mate,
but
I've
they're
got like
limited edition,
3.
and they're-
I've got like 3 black ones here. I'll send you
can
off
you
one.
send,
I've
please?
got so
'Cause
many.
this I only got white, and I can't wear it
Yeah.
anywhere. It's got sweat marks. I'm probably sweating the house down, nervous as hell, being on camera. So I need a new one. But maybe
Look,
we can
what we
rock
are
it.
what we are going to do though is we're actually are going to do a new run of merch. I don't know how soon it's going to be, but we've been speaking about it, and we are going to make them available for people to buy as well. Because the only ones that we've ever made, we actually had a box of 50, and we kind of just threw them out into the crowd at our first live show over in Perth. So look, that is something that we are working on. Macca, another is a new segment to the
Yes.
Paddlers Pod,
You know
and that
this.
is Talk Back Radio. Now, here's how it's going to work. Okay, on the next episode of the Paddlers Pod, we are going to be reading out some of your stories to do with a certain topic on each Talkback Radio matter. The best one that we are going to read out a few, but the best one that we do pick is going to get a gift voucher as well that you'll be able to spend to keep your paddling going on the water. And Macca, we have landed on a topic for the first ever segment of Talkback Radio.
We have. It's coming into that time of season where the big wildlife seem to roam the coast of the east coast of Australia. When I say big, I mean monstrous, the things that make us feel really small, and they're whales. So we are putting it out there. We want to hear your best whale story, whatever it may be. Or we've spoken about some on the podcast in the past, those people that got eaten by one, I think. There's been many, but we want to hear from you. And so we have a form that I don't know if it'll work, but I believe it will, where you'll film yourself talking about it, and then we'll be able to play it and judge a winner.
So keep an eye out to our social media channels because we are going to be posting the details on how you can send those in. But we want to hear from you. We say it all the time, but it is so important to us and to the podcast that you guys actually do get in touch with us as well. Now, the last thing that I want to tick off before we do go is that it actually is a story of feedback. Now, Macca, I am aware that, with certain things that we talk about on the podcast, like, we chat a lot, we're best mates, but it's harder to talk about things for a second time, and get the reaction, to do it. And
Yeah.
I have a story that's been sitting in my back pocket, and it's actually quite relevant because it actually goes to show the difference that hearing from you, that is, dear listener, I'm pointing on the YouTube for those who are just listening along, the difference that you guys, can make in the community that we do have. I'm trying to think about it. No, I don't think I even need a sense of this story, to be honest. All right, story time with Sam. Settle in, guys. Now, at the start of the year, I was down in Melbourne for a mate's engagement party, and we made a bit of a boys' weekend of it. And during that time down there, met a girl, lovely girl, super nice. Had a great time down there, and I don't know, awesome to see her. But she lives in Melbourne, and I'm obviously living in Sydney, which is 1,000 k's away. And in this kind of gesture of I'm like, am I telling this on a podcast?
This is great. Keep going. Please. I'm going to clap you in. This is good. I do want to hear this. And so does everyone.
Listen, it was hard to kind of organise. I'm like, fuck, how am I going to be able to see her again? Like, I can't get back to Melbourne very often because I work on weekends. And, you know, she was starting a new job. So I've gone, you know what? I wanted to come to Sydney. I'm going to pay for her flights to come to Sydney. You know, like I pissed money up against the wall on dumb shit, you know, the worse stuff than this. So I was like, I'm going to fly to Sydney. Anyway, so I've flown her up, right? And she's come to Sydney. We obviously, you know, knew each other and what kind of people we were. But, you know, all of a sudden she's in Sydney, you know, not knowing, I guess, like, you know, everything about me. And, you know, at one point on the first day that she was here, 'cause she came up for the weekend. At one point on the first day that she was here, like, oh, I'm getting something out of my cupboard. And she's like, what's that? And as soon as, before she said it, I looked at it and I went, oh, fuck, like, if she sees this is... And I'm like, hey, listen, there's no easy way to say this. You know, like, please don't judge me, but I've got a podcast. I've got a podcast, you know, which is like the ultimate, isn't it just the ultimate, like, young guy has a podcast, think people care about their life. And I'm trying to explain to her, like, no, it's actually about paddling and, you know, it's
which
important.
Might be worse.
Like, people enjoy it. You know, it's all like, it's, you know, there's a bigger purpose. There's a higher purpose above us, you know, just talking about our lives.
Yeah.
And, you know, very funny, lots of laughs, whatever. Okay. The next day we're going into the city. And, you know, for where I live at Manly, you get the ferry into the city. And I actually had to race the surf life-saving event the next day. And I'm trying to, like, get a gauge as we're going past the heads of Sydney of what the ocean conditions were like. You know, hey, and she's a hilarious girl. I'm laughing a lot. You know, I'm running my mouth a bit. You know, we're probably being pretty loud. And there was this guy in front of us, this businessman in a suit who kept turning around over his shoulder and kind of looking at us. And at first, I'm thinking... this guy is going to say something like, you know, shut up. Like, you're being so loud. You know, you're being so loud on the ferry. And I'm kind of looking over the side of the ferry to see what the wind and the swell's doing. She's like, what are you looking at? I said, oh, look, you know, I'm looking at the direction of the swell because, you know, we're racing at Bondi the next day. And, you know, the swell direction at Bondi, if it's really south, it can get into the beach, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the guy sitting in front of us has wheeled around again.
Oh, no.
And he said, hey, listen, I wasn't going to say anything, but now that you're talking about paddling, I think I have to. My name is Rich. Mate, Sam, I'm such a huge fan of your podcast. No. And I was stunned, and Rich had his sunnies on, and then he kind of took his sunnies off, and I went, Rich, we met over in WA, actually. Macca and I, we had a beer with him. It was after the doctor 2 years ago when we did that live show for the first time, and we're chatting about all things paddling. And, you know, like, I kept turning to, you know, like, I don't think I should have it, but I kept turning to, you know, our guest and we're saying, hey, listen, like, I swear to God, this isn't like a G
It's
up.
not
like,
staged.
I didn't organize this. And Rich, very glowing in his praise of the podcast, which was very funny. And then he did turn to her and said, look, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'll leave you guys alone. You know, you must get this all the time.
Oh, my God.
And I said, you know what, Rich, believe it or not, this is actually a second date. I've flown her up to Sydney. And he said, no way. I said, yeah. He said, what are you up to? I said, we're going into the city. We're going to have lunch at Toddy's. And, you know, Toddy's, wow, you must be special. You know, that's really expensive. And you know what? It was fucking expensive as well. But crucially, and this is the most important part of the story, is that when I did say we actually don't really know each other and we're kind of doing something pretty spontaneous, you could see the cog turn for a second, and he looked at her and was like, so you don't know anything about Sam and his paddling? And she's like, no, not really. And he has just gone to work pumping me up. Like, it was an unspoken acknowledgement of, hey, listen, you know, brother, we are part of the same paddling family. I'm going to help you out. And he did the best gassing up of someone that I've ever witnessed in my life. He's making me out as if I'm some kind of elite paddler. He's talking about the difference that the podcast made. Him and his friends listening to every episode. When are you going to record your next episode? Yeah, we've had that one a lot over the last 6 months.
Rich.
It was unreal. It was unreal, and it was so funny. And, you know, when we did say goodbye to Rich, you know, she turned to me as we're walking off the ferry and said, hey, listen, you were completely underselling your podcast. Like, that is amazing. I didn't realize it was so well known. And you know what? It's not well known, because not only are we not putting in effort to even record it lately, or at least until now, that was just an example of one of the Paddlers pod community just giving a leg up to each other. And Rich did send me a message on Instagram, you know, that afternoon of lots of crying, laughing emojis, and said, I hope I helped. And you know what, Rich?
Man.
You did help. You did help. And not only did you give us, you know, a big leg up, you actually gave us one of the funniest stories that we've ever had to tell on the podcast. So, listening community, listening crew, hey, we see you and we hear you. And this is why, when we say that we do want to hear from you, we well and truly mean it, because that is a funny story that I'll never forget.
We'll just talk about that. If we hear from you every day we're out, imagine the stories we could tell. Oh, that is so
Macca,
perfect.
that is, I've been waiting so long to tell you that.
My God. That is so funny, because that happened back in like February.
That was in February. Yeah, that was in February.
You've done well.
And I've been waiting. I almost told you straight away, and I thought, no, I'm going to tell you for the first time on the podcast to actually get your natural reaction to it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, very good. Hey, and you know what? She was a sweetheart. You know, we're not seeing each other anymore, but good luck to her. You know, we wish her, on behalf of the Paddlers pod, we wish her all the best. We also salute Rich, which is probably the most important part as well. So, in conclusion, I feel like that's the perfect way to leave it. Get in touch with us. You're going to be able to, you're going to have an opportunity to tell us your stories about whales. I think that's a pretty fitting yarn rather to kick off Talkback Radio, at least for the next episode anyway. But until then, hey guys, happy paddling, and Macca, thank you. It's great to be back.
Always a pleasure, never a chore. Until next time, take care and enjoy.
Paddlers Pod with Sam and Macca.